just have a few more questions for you. One thing I think I may have neglected to ask, you are currently a lieutenant, and we heard about your career pathway, but can you tell me a little bit more about the sort of the organizational structure of Scottsdale PD? Where does a lieutenant fit into the structure?
So lieutenant is the rank below a commander and above a sergeant. So lieutenant oversees and manages sections in the police department, certain divisions in the department. They oversee the day-to-day operational activity that occurs at the Scottsdale Police Department at the patrol level. And they handle basically middle management to different administrative tasks.
And what's above commander?
Above the rank of commander will be the deputy or the assistant chief of police, and then the chief of police is the top of the organization.
Now I want to return to the house just for a few questions, and then we'll move forward in time a little bit. You had mentioned a couple weeks ago now, that there were some things that stood out to you about PMH, and I asked you those questions. Do you remember those?
Yes.
So I just want to make sure I have it clear. Did PMH appear any different than what appeared to you as blood in the home?
Yes, it did. It definitely was not the same type of makeup that you would see normally on a blood stain on the floor. It was a darkish, almost substance that appeared to be almost yellow, darkish in color, that almost seemed to be viscous, kind of a stickier substance that appeared to be, that was out of place from the actual blood stains that we saw on the tile floor.
And you had mentioned last week, or we have gone through some photographs of glass pieces within the home. Do you remember those questions?
Yes, I do.
Were you present when ultimately the we'll call it half of a bottle piece was found?
Yes, I was.
And tell me a little bit more about that.
So the half a bottle piece was the top of a beer bottle, and it was found underneath the couch in the sunken living room. So when we moved that couch to process it and to take it out of the residence, we found the full end of a bottle underneath the couch that we did not initially see.
And do you remember what day that was found?
Off the top of my head, I believe that was either Friday or Saturday. Might have been Saturday.
And to be clear, that you were in the house for 4 days?
Yes.
And it was essentially Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday?
Yes.
Okay. Judge, may I approach?
You may, and you have continuing permission.
I'm approaching with what's been marked as State's Exhibit 10. Take a look at that for me. Understanding that, what are you looking at?
This was Exhibit 10. Here is a bottle, a contained glass bottle, and within that glass bottle there is it is the upper part of the beer bottle that we retrieved from that evening.
And Judge, the state would move to admit Exhibit 10.
Any objection? You may.
No objection, Your Honor.
It's ordered admitting Exhibit 10 into evidence.
It's going to be a little harder to show, but when you were writing your report, Lieutenant, do you at one point reference the bottle found as a summer shandy bottle?
Yes, I did.
Is that a different kind of Leinenkugel's beer?
Yes, it is.
Is it clear that the bottle found under the couch was actually a Honey Weiss?
Yes, it is.
And you can actually see that on the bottle cap itself?
Yes.
It's not going to be easy to see this, and I'm not going to really pass it around right now, but I just want everyone to get an understanding. This is what we're looking at here. You can kind of even see the interior and read the label there. So is this, we're calling it half a bottle, but it's a sort of a upper piece of a bottle?
Yeah, the upper neck part of a beer bottle.
Does it appear to be broken?
Yes.
Sort of an obvious question. Now you talked about finding that under the couch. So I just want to make sure I understand it. When you're in the scene on Wednesday, on Thursday, was this something that you would have been able to see just walking around the house?
No,
Misstates prior testimony.
Overruled. The witness may answer.
no, it did not.
Okay. Why was finding that bottle under the couch sort of important to you as a detective at that time?
Objection leading
Overruled.
established that it was important.
Sir, I can't hear you.
Sorry,
I said,
if you could just pull the microphone, please. Thank you.
I said objection leading, he hasn't established that the bottle was important.
Could you rephrase the question, please?
Sure, Judge.
Thank
Was
you.
finding the bottle important to you?
Yes, it was.
Why?
Well, the main reason is all of the different beer glass and broken beer bottles that we were finding in the home, we were concerned because there wasn't enough to make an actual beer bottle. So when we found this neck of the part of the bottle, it was important to us because we found a significant part of a bottle that, of all the other pieces that we had collected, we weren't finding an entire beer bottle. There was definitely some pieces missing.
Are you aware of I'm jumping topics now here, not to throw you off. Are you aware of an individual named Ed Pfeiffer?
Yes, I am.
Did he come to the attention of detectives early on in the investigation?
Yes, he did.
And why is that?
He was a UPS driver that we had learned about through our investigation.
Are you aware of his buccal swab was obtained in February of 2015?
Yes, I was.
Now I'm jumping again. Did you ultimately leave your role in the violent crimes unit as a detective for a time?
Yes, I did.
So we talked about this before, but from the time frame of this investigation, I kind of want to understand. Around when did you leave detective in violent crimes to go be a sergeant on patrol?
So April of 2015, I promoted to the rank of sergeant. And like I had stated earlier, when in our department, when you promote, it is part of our procedures is that you are reassigned to the patrol division. So in April of 2015, I promoted to the rank of sergeant, and I subsequently was assigned to supervise a patrol squad in Scottsdale.
And I ask that because at that point that you go to be a patrol sergeant, do you kind of step away from this case for a time?
Yes,
Do you go back to the violent crimes unit?
yes. So in July of 2016, about 16 months later, I was brought back to the violent crimes unit as the violent crime unit supervisor.
And when you get back to violent crimes, do you step back into this case as part of your duties?
Yes, I am overseeing the investigation now.
So tell me a little bit about that. Now we're in after July of 2016. What sorts of steps are being taken as it relates to this case?
Well, it's been a little over a year and a half, 18, 19 months since the incident had occurred. So most of the steps that I had taken is starting to look back through the entire case file, looking at all the different information, tips, leads that we had received, reviewing all the evidence to see what other methods or what other things that we had potentially not had done yet, potential interviews that need to be done, any other investigative procedures that we need to ensure that be done to further the case.
Did you cause to have happen a neighborhood investigation in 2017?
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about that.
Yes, so in February of 2017, which would have marked the 2 years since the incident had occurred, I helped coordinate a neighborhood investigation, a neighborhood canvas investigation of the entire neighborhood surrounding the Monterey address where Allison lived. And the purpose of that was to identify and speak with individuals since time had passed to see if anyone had not been talked to. Maybe we had missed them on the initial canvas to see if anyone had heard of anything, knew of anything, that previously had not been disclosed to the police department.
And just so we are kind of contextually on the same page, in February of 2017, as we talked about a couple weeks ago, you had already been notified of an unknown male profile related to the DNA on PMH.
Yes, so in going back to the latter part of February of 2015, we had obtained a full DNA profile from that PMH that we are aware of.
And as part of your neighborhood investigation, do you get buccal swabs from individuals, males, in the neighborhood?
Yes, that was part of our investigation, was asking individuals if they'd ever been in Allison's home, when they were in their home, and then also just asking a consensual buccal swab from them.
Did you also ask, at that point, Detective Heinzelman to follow up with an individual down the street from Allison Feldman's home who may have seen someone out walking that night?
Yes, I did.
And we'll ask him about what that contact, but that you were present again in the investigation when some of that follow-up was done?
Yes, we had information from a previous tip sheet that was part of the investigation, where an individual had observed somebody walking down the street, and I assigned that to be followed up by Detective Heinzelman.
And when we're talking about the general knowledge of the investigation and some of the investigative decisions that you made, in 2017, were you aware of an individual named James Katslamides whose DNA swab had already, or buccal swab had been taken already?
Yes.
Now I'm gonna jump topics again. Did you, kind of all over in time here, but did you ultimately request that a shoe print from the home be reviewed to see if any additional information could be learned?
Yes.
And I'm not going to ask you what, if any of those conclusions may have been. That'll be a question for a different witness. But did you send off some photographs of a shoe print in the home to, at the point in March 2015, to us, the Washington State?
Yes.
And I'm going to show you it's already been admitted as Exhibit 179. Is this a one of the pictures that you sent? We've seen it as L2 to be looked at.
Yes, this was this exhibit here that you're showing is a picture that we had sent.
Okay. And at this time in the investigation, we're talking over a series of years now, from 2015, your return in 2016, your involvement again in 2017. Are you, as a police agency, making investigative decisions as to any potential follow-up?
Yes.
And ultimately, Lieutenant, do you sort of reach a point where potentially the investigative leads that you're aware of have been exhausted?
Yes, we were no longer getting additional evidence to help identify who may have been responsible. So we were exploring other opportunities or other options to continue this investigation.
And I'm going to ask just a few leading questions, and I'm almost done with my questions of you. In early 2017, you're back at the Violent Crimes Unit as a supervisor at that point?
Yes.
Do you have discussions within Scottsdale Police Department about potentially utilizing familial DNA?
Yes, I did.
At this point, do you make that request of the Department of Public Safety, another Arizona agency, to proceed with that process?
Yes. Yes, I do.
And do you later learn in April of 2018 that an individual named Mark Mitcham may be a male relative of the person who left PMH?
Yes.
Do you learn that Mark had 3 brothers, Eric, Craig, and Ian?
Yes.
And that they have a father who at that point in 2018 was deceased?
Yes.
That Ian has a nexus to the city of Scottsdale?
Yes, he does.
That ultimately, do you request additional DNA work be done by the Scottsdale Crime Lab?
Yes.
And ultimately, does the crime lab let you know that there was a match to PMH?
Yes, they do.
Okay. And we're going to hear from the individuals with the crime lab. But at this point now, it's 2018. Within a week of finding out the information that you find out, do you ultimately have contact with Ian Mitcham yourself?
Yes, we do.
Are you part of an interview of Ian Mitcham along with Detective Heinzelman?
Yes.
Can you identify Ian Mitcham? Is he in the courtroom today?
Yes, he is.
Can you tell me where he's seated or what he's wearing?
Permission to stand.
You may.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Mitcham is seated at the defense table. He's wearing a brown suit with a brown and grayish tie and a white shirt, wearing glasses, bald with a beard.
Judge, may the record reflect this witness has identified the defendant.
Any objection?
No objection.
It is so reflected.
Had you, detective, ever had contact with Mitcham, to your knowledge, particularly prior to February 17th of 2015?
No.
May I have just a moment, Judge?
You may.
I don't have any further questions, Judge.
And cross-examination of this witness whenever you're ready.
Good morning, Lieutenant.
Good morning.
Hi. Do you remember talking to me back in 2021?
Yes, I do.
I think it was an hour and a half or so, and you also talked to Jeff, one of the attorneys representing Mr. Mitcham.
Yes.
Is there anything that you want to change regarding statements that you made to us at that time?
No.
I see that you have a briefcase with you today.
Yes, I do.
Okay. Are there documents in that briefcase that we should be aware of?
No, sir.
Are you planning to admit any additional documents that the state hasn't given us notice of?
No, sir.
I'm going to jump around to, like Mr. Roseberry had. Kind of want to talk to you about different categories. A lot of this is coming from your former interview with me. Let's see. So if we can just kind of start in the beginning. On February the 18th, you heard on the radio that there had been an event at the house on Monterey, and you went to the home?
Yes, I did.
Okay, and you're the first detective there?
I believe I was one of the first, yes.
Okay. And you were kind of seeing what people were doing and kind of updating the people as they were arriving?
Yes, when I arrived on scene, I wanted to make contact with the initial responding officers to get a sense as to what they had seen and what they had done so far.
You didn't enter the home at that time?
No, I did not.
Okay. And you did enter later that evening?
Yes, later that evening I did enter the home.
Okay, and was it dark at that time?
I'm sorry, could you
Was it dark?
I believe it was, yes.
Okay. And at that time, as detectives arose, were there meetings that you're having with other detectives where you're kind of updating them on the status of the case and assigning duties to those other detectives?
Could you just clarify your question? Because I didn't hear the first part of it. Could you just rephrase that for me, please?
Okay. We've heard from other people, that arrived. Are you aware that there were patrol people that arrived at the scene?
Yes, yeah.
Okay. And that's ultimately where you went after being a detective in violent crimes, then you went to be a sergeant of a patrol unit?
Okay,
I'm jumping around, I'm just.
all right. I understand what your question is, so.
Okay, thank you.
I think. So yes, when I was a patrol sergeant, I was responsible to a patrol squad, and one of our responsibilities were to respond to critical incidents, investigations, crimes that are occurred or had occurred, and ultimately the patrol sergeant would be responsible for directing officers to take on certain responsibilities and duties.
Okay. So if there was a patrol sergeant that had already arrived or arrived about the time that you arrived, was he updating you and other people about the status, the circumstances of the crime?
I don't know if I can say that he was updating us as to the circumstances of the crime. He was updating us to what they did when they entered the home and what they saw when they entered the home.
Okay. Did that patrol sergeant assign any duties to detectives as, to further the investigation of the case?
No,
Were you the person that assigned duties?
no, I was not.
Okay, who was?
Well, in February 2015, the violent crime supervisor, Sergeant T.R. Davidson, was responsible for assigning duties to the violent crimes detectives.
Was he at the scene when you were at the scene?
Yes, he was.
Okay. What were the responsibilities of Detective Williamson?
We don't have a Detective Williamson.
Okay. Okay. Who is Williamson at the scene?
Williamson would have been Sergeant Scott Williamson. Scott?
Okay. And what is his duty?
His duty in that time frame would have been the patrol sergeant that was responsible for the patrol officers.
At some point, you drafted a search warrant?
Yes, that was my first responsibility.
Okay. And who assigned that to you?
Sergeant T.R. Davidson.
Okay. Did you enter the home before the search warrant?
I did not.
Okay. Did you stand in the doorway and look into the home?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And I think you've talked about that in your questioning about a couple of weeks ago.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. At some point, did you walk through the home with a crime scene investigator by the name of Palma?
Yes.
Okay. And were you the first detective to go through the home?
No, I was not.
Okay. Who was the first detective?
That would have been Detective John Heinzelman.
And at some point, you identified 26 items that you felt were of interest?
Yes, we did.
Okay. And were those denoted by some kind of placard?
Yes.
Okay. So the placards wouldn't have been placed until you had gotten the warrant and you went into the home and identified the 26 items, and then placards were placed on those items?
Yes.
And then what happened next?
Those items were collected, swabbed, areas or pieces of evidence that we felt that were significant to the initial investigation when we were inside the home.
Did you do any swabs yourself?
No, I don't do swabs.
Okay. Do you do DNA swabs?
Personally,
For persons, for people?
yes, for people, I do that.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay. And at some point, did you find a driver's license for Miss Feldman in the home?
Yes, we did find a driver's license located in the kitchen.
Okay. And is that how you identified her?
The female that was lying on the floor that we previously looked at, due to the amount of trauma to her body, we utilized the driver's license to help identify at least who we believe that female was, along with additional information that we had learned from interviewing the initial caller, her Alex, who had came to the home.
Okay, thank you. And at some point, Detective Mac Williams was assigned as lead detective?
Yes, he was.
And what does that mean?
The lead detective is responsible for the case in general, submitting crime lab requests, reviewing the evidence collected, conducting interviews, and they're ultimately the person that is going to determine at some point how the investigation ends and how they respond. They're basically responsible for the case.
Okay, so how does the delegation of duties work, with detectives at the scene? Because all of you are on the same level as far as responsibility, is that correct?
Yes.
And then someone is identified that's going to lead the investigation from the detective level?
Yes.
Okay, and then does that person assigned responsibilities and duties at the scene?
No, and if I think I understand your question correctly, so the violent crime supervisor, which I took for 3 years, is responsible for identifying who's going to take the lead on the investigation. From that point, they will assign different duties and responsibilities of other detectives, whether that's drafting a search warrant, whether that's conducting interviews, whether that's conducting the crime scene investigation. Sometimes the roles of a case or the lead detective, we intermix those words, case and lead, they're the same thing. They will have multiple different responsibilities. That could be investigating the crime scene, conducting an important interview, but ultimately they're responsible of collecting all of the documents and reviewing all of the evidence interviews and finding out any other additional follow-up that needs. And they report to the sergeant who oversees the actual investigation.
And so Mac Williams would have been assigning duties, but he's ultimately responsible to the sergeant.
Yes, in some ways he would ask a detective to handle something, but ultimately the sergeant kind of is ultimately responsible of making sure that those responsibilities are completed and conducted.
And what role was Detective Heinzelman assigned at that point?
In February of 2015, Detective Heinzelman and I were responsible for the crime scene investigation.
At the Monterey house?
Yes.
Okay, so you and he are both assigned at some point. Then did Mac Williams take over your responsibility?
No.
Okay, so you were still assigned at the scene
Yes.
as the person in charge of the scene,
Yes.
okay, along with Detective Heinzelman?
Yes.
Okay. Kind of want to go through some of the things that you said you found at the scene.
Okay.
In our interview, you talk about finding large items, caps or tops of bottles, and parts of beer bottles, and I think you repeated that today.
Yes.
Okay. Were those items, it probably was a slip, but I believe you said something about finding those items under the bed. I've looked at both transcripts, but was that a mistake, if you said that?
Are you talking about today or
When you were talking to the defense team in 2021?
in 2021? I don't remember ever saying that they were under a bed. I believe it would have been pretty consistent that they were found in the living room under the couch.
At that point, you didn't think they were under a bed?
No.
Okay. Okay. So you found some items under the couch?
Yes.
Okay. And when you talk about finding items under the couch, we had seen the broken top of a bottle. Is that what you're thinking of?
Yes, that's what we found under the couch, was that broken neck part of a beer bottle.
Okay. And that was on the 21st, which would have been 4 days after at least the police initially entered the home, or the fourth day?
Yeah, I mean, the dates, I want to make sure I correspond correctly with dates and
Okay.
days. So Wednesday, we were initially there. We did not find it till I believe it was either Friday or Saturday. I just can't remember if it was
Okay.
18th, 19th, 20th, or 21st. It was right around there.
Okay. What I'm trying to determine is at what point you looked under the couch and found some glass pieces.
That would have been either that Friday or Saturday. I might have to just refer to my report real quick. That's if you want a direct day, I'd have to just double check on that.
Okay. And now, I think last time when you were talking, you had talked about the couch being ajar in the sunken living room when you went to the home
Yes.
and up against, I think, a coffee table where it shouldn't be.
Yes, when I entered the home, the couch was, it did not appear that it would be in a natural position that you'd place it. It would appear to be pushed, or at least at an angle and ajar when it was up against the coffee table.
On that day, did you find any pieces of glass under the couch?
No.
Okay. Was the couch eventually moved from that position?
Yes, yes, it was.
Okay. I don't expect you to have the answer, but just in case you do you know when it was moved?
I want to say it was Saturday. I think it was the last day that we were there.
Okay. So how was it moved?
Well, after the prior 3 days that we were there, we were identifying different areas of forensic evidence. And on the couch, there was some blood stains, some transfer blood stains that appeared to have been a bloody object had came in contact with that backside of the couch. So we had actually done some cuttings of that couch. And we wanted to make sure that we processed that couch initially before we had it removed. So we did not remove it until I believe it was Saturday, the last day we were there.
As far as changing the position of the couch in the room, do you know if that was ever done?
Not that I can recall us changing that position of that couch.
Okay, so at some point the couch. Talk to me about how the cap of the beer bottle was found.
The cap of the beer, or the beer bottle that Exhibit 10 that we had previously looked at was underneath the couch. So we did not, if it was moved a little bit, we didn't see it. It wasn't until we actually picked it up and removed the couch that we saw this beer bottle piece, Exhibit 10, underneath the couch.
Okay. You say we, and that's, was my objection earlier. Did someone tell you they did that? Did you do it? Did you observe someone doing it?
Detective Heinzelman and I were responsible of the crime scene, so I and Detective Heinzelman helped move that couch. Now, obviously, the couch was a fairly big couch. It was heavy, and I'm not strong enough to just move it on my own. So we had a couple different people, and that's why I was determining. Let's say we moved that couch out of the way and out of the sunken living room.
Okay. But you were present.
Yes.
Okay. Who first noticed the top of the bottle cap, or the top of the beer bottle?
I don't remember there being an aha moment where somebody said it was readily apparent that there was a beer bottle. I don't know who saw it first, but I remember seeing it immediately, and I'm seeing that Exhibit 10 laying there.
Okay. And so when you first went in on the 18th, the couch was askew, and then you did some cuttings from the couch. And at some point, you say the couch may have been moved a little bit.
I don't remember us having to move it at all. A little bit. We might have had to push it a tiny bit, but I don't remember in my memory of actually being part of moving it. I just remembered on the day that we had removed it, picked it up.
Okay. So it's not clear. Photographs might help you refresh your recollection on
Yes,
the time.
I mean,
Okay.
it would be of value, yes.
Okay. Okay. Jumping to a statement that you made about finding a burglar detection device or some type of security device in Miss Feldman's bedroom?
Yes,
Or something that you could see, some kind of display?
yes.
Okay. Um, Something that I saw going back through our interview, you had mentioned that the sliding door in the back had, that particular device was able to determine when that door was open or shut.
Yes, it did.
Okay. You mentioned that the screen part of that slider was not detectable
Correct.
on the screen. What do you mean by that?
Based on our investigation, that security system captured the opening and closings of doors, including the slider door. However, we did not see any type of part of the security system that would have captured the actual screen door being moved. So that's why we did not believe that it would not have detected that.
Okay, so when someone talks about the system indicating that the back sliding door was open, you don't mean to state that both the screen and the door were open or both the screen and the door were shut. You don't know.
The security system showed us when the sliding glass door was either closed or open.
But I guess my question is, the sliding glass door could have been open and the screen closed.
It's possible.
It's more than possible, isn't it? It's at least 50% likelihood.
I'm sorry, what was their question?
It's more than possible because you can't determine one way or the other, right?
Correct. Yeah, I'm just answering your question. I mean, it's possible that it could be open or it could be closed. It's just the security system detected the actual sliding glass door.
Okay, thanks. Were you present when the Blue Star chemical was used?
Yes, I was.
Okay, and what were the circumstances of that test?
The circumstances of using Blue Star were because we had observed and we had believed in our investigation that there was significant cleanup. And we believed that there was voids and blood stains on the cool deck of the patio of the pool, and because we had found evidence of potentially that Ms. Feldman was in the pool. So we had used the Blue Star chemicals to see if anything that we could not see with the naked eye would be detected with Blue Star, either chemicals or blood that may have been no longer there because of that void.
Okay, so I believe in your interview with us, you talked about the fact that chlorine can ignite Blue Star. And what did you mean by that?
Based on my experience of working with Blue Star on thousands of death investigations and using Blue Star and on other investigations, chlorine has a chemical makeup that will ignite or at least indicate with the chemical Blue Star that it was present on that surface.
Okay, so does it become a blue color? Is that what you see when it ignites?
Yes,
Okay, and so if we see a photograph of a scene taken at night that has a lot of blue in it, it could be chlorine or it could be blood, correct?
yes.
Today you kind of clarified the Leinenkugel bottle as to whether it was Summer Shanty or another, what was the other?
Honey
classification?
Vice, honey, and then WEISS.
Okay, and you corrected prior testimony as to which it was.
Yes, I did.
Okay, you're from Wisconsin, right?
I am.
Okay, so you're familiar with the Leinenkugel brand?
Yes.
Okay, is that like something that people from Wisconsin might be aware of, but other people might not be?
I can't speak for all people that are from Wisconsin. I can just speak for myself. I'm aware of the different brands of Leinenkugels. I grew up not too far from there.
Okay, is that a product that you enjoy or that's one of your favorite beers if you drink?
I do occasionally have a honey, a Leinenkugel's. I don't know if it's necessarily my favorite, but I definitely have tried different kinds.
Okay. You talked about the broken beer pieces and that there really were not enough to make one bottle, and so there were pieces of glass missing.
Yes,
Okay. I believe in an interview you talked about that you had believed there were two different bottles in the scene.
yes,
Is that still your opinion?
yes.
Okay, so having the different name on the bottle doesn't change that opinion.
Do you mind rephrasing your question? I'm not really sure exactly what you're asking me.
I think when you talked to us, you talked about there being one or two labels and the color of the beer and the color of the bottle, and that was the basis that you believed that there were two different beer bottles that were used in the scene.
Yes, so we did find different, I don't know about the colors of the beer, but there was a piece of a beer bottle that we found that we believed that had a label or at least a marking on it that would indicate it came from a creamy dark Leinenkugel's. And then when we found the second beer bottle under the couch, that Honey Weiss made us believe that there was two beer bottles in the scene.
Okay. Want to move to what we call is PMH,
Yes,
which was the stain on the floor near the chair that was by the dining room table or by the table. Okay.
yes,
Okay. You talked to us about it appearing to have granules in it.
yes,
Okay. And I believe you mentioned that you weren't definitive, you were just saying it appeared like it could have been tobacco.
yes. I definitely couldn't say for sure with 100%
Yes.
but it just appeared from what I saw and what I recall looking at the pictures and also being at the scene that day.
Okay. And actually that stain was labeled as a spitter stain.
Yes,
Okay. And was that in part because the idea that it might be tobacco?
the importance behind it, not that it was tobacco, is the fact that the importance of was it because it was away from it was different. It was a different type of stain on the floor, and it did not appear consistent with the blood or any of the swipes that were through the blood. So it was a concern of us because of the proximity of the chair, the proximity of the blood, the proximity of being in the middle of the home next to this chair, and then it being just a different type of a substance.
Okay. Was the substance ever tested to determine what it was?
We sent that substance PMH to the crime lab. They developed the DNA profile. I don't have any independent information to say if they are able to determine what it came from, but I do know that we did a Kasselmeyer test on that, and it had no indications of the substance coming from blood.
Okay. So to this day, you don't know what the substance was?
Correct.
Okay. But I think you talked to us about it being sticky, and it also had these granules in it that could have been tobacco.
That's what it appeared to me. It appeared to be sticky, like I said earlier, viscous, with maybe some granules in it. I just couldn't completely say exactly what it was.
This may be an unfair question, and I'm sure you'll tell me if it isn't making sense. Are you familiar with how items are swabbed for DNA, what the process is, and what pressure is applied?
Yes,
Okay. So isn't it true that a great deal of pressure would be applied to make certain that DNA is picked up on a swab? Say if someone were swabbing the floor, they would swab it just about to the point that it actually broke. And that is to be sure that you pick up whatever is there. Would you agree with that?
see, at the Scottsdale Police Department, we typically swab things in two different formats. We use a wet swab, and then a dry swab. So we will collect that same stain through two different methods. The amount of pressure that they use is up to the crime scene specialist that's collecting that. you know, I don't know if exactly how much pressure they do, but they do collect it using two different types of methods.
Okay, so a placard was put on that, I think that was one of the 26 items
Yes,
that were of interest, and a placard was put there, and then at some point, someone came back and swabbed it.
yes.
Okay, and you don't know whether or not the DNA that they picked up, assuming that they picked up DNA on that swab, was from the liquid or from the floor itself, right?
The swab was collected by our crime scene specialists. They collected it off of the floor, off of that stain.
So the answer is you don't know whether or not the swab picked up something from the floor itself or from the stain. If you can't answer that, I'm not asking you to guess.
I'm trying to understand what your question is. So the swab, the cotton swab that they use is open. It's a package, prepackaged. It's never been used before ever. They're using gloves. They open up this package. They immediately swab that item. They take a plastic cap over that and they seal it, and then they place it into an evidence envelope. So whatever they're swabbing is what's collecting eventually that swab is taken to the crime lab. So whatever that swab is collected off of that surface area is what the DNA is going to be, the DNA examiner is going to be looking for.
Okay. Okay. Jumping to you when you first arrived at the scene.
Yes.
Okay, I believe that you had noticed that Allison's boyfriend was at the scene.
Yes, he was.
Okay, and I think you told us that you were aware that the scene smelled of bleach, and you kind of wanted to get near him to see if he smelled of bleach. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, and he didn't smell of bleach.
No, I did not detect any type of a chlorine or bleach smell coming from Mr. Alex.
And based upon your years of experience and the thousands of cases that you've handled, you would have suspected that if he had been in the scene the day before and done the cleaning or whatever that was done, that smell would still be lingering on Alex, correct?
Well, the timeline hadn't been established yet, so we didn't know. We hadn't been in the scene yet. We had just had very preliminary information from our initial officers that went into the home to make sure that there's no other outstanding suspects or victims inside the home. So we didn't know when this occurred. My initial contact with Mr. Alex was to determine if I detected anything, if he had been in the home for a period of time prior to that. So I didn't have any information at that time as to the timeline of events of the death of Allison.
I believe you told us that you would expect the person who committed the crime to have an odor of bleach. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, it's possible, yeah.
Okay. Okay. As we're going through the interview, and we're kind of going during the interview, we went through all the different the police reports that you drafted or that you mentioned, and at one point you talked about finding a broken fingernail under a table. Do you remember that?
Yes, I do.
Okay. And my recollection is that is something that you personally found. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Where was it?
So in the kitchen, next to the kitchen, next to the sliding glass door, and I know we don't have a photo to depict this, but there was a table with a couple chairs around it. It was a glass table. There was a Swiffer mop that was leaning up against that table. Underneath the table, once we got closer and were examining the crime scene, I found this small little piece of a fingernail.
Okay. Were you like on your hands and knees on the floor, or could you see it from standing?
I don't recall being on my hands and knees. I believe I once I was in the right position, it caught my eye as to something different there, and I got a little bit closer and I was able to see that it was a fingernail.
Okay. And that's something that was still there whatever day it was that you collected it, right?
Yes, I believe that would have been Thursday or Friday. I think Thursday, off the top of my head.
Could it have been the 21st?
21st is
Saturday.
Saturday. It could have been Saturday. I'd have to recheck my report, sir. I'm sorry, I just don't remember exactly what exact day it was because we had been in there for 4 days.
Okay. And so when you'd gone through on the evening of the 18th, that hadn't been one of the 26 items that would be of interest?
Correct. We did not see it at that time.
Okay. But once you saw it, did you determine that it was an item of interest?
Yes.
Why?
Detective Heinzelman and Detective McWilliams had gone to the autopsy of Miss Feldman, and they had reported to all of us that she had a broken middle fingernail, and when we found that fingernail, we were able to determine that that was probably the piece that had been broken from her hand.
Were you ever given notice that that fingernail was tested for DNA?
I don't remember me personally getting notice.
Are you
I get-
aware?
I'm aware of it being tested for DNA, yes.
Okay. Do you know what the results were?
Not off the top of my head, no.
Okay. Okay. I'm assuming we're going to 12, is that?
Yes, that's
Okay,
correct.
thank you. So, jumping to one of the reports that you wrote, and it has to do with Marina Sokolov, I
Yes.
believe. I think I got it right. I don't know. Did I?
You're pretty close, yes,
Wow.
sir.
How would you pronounce it?
Pretty much the same way, Sokolov. It's easier when I see the word and I can
Yes.
pronounce it out versus memory.
You have to pronounce each
Yep.
vowel, and probably neither one of us are close to being right. I don't know. I believe that you had looked at a calendar that Allison had to try to determine what context she had or what she was doing in the day before she was killed.
Yes,
Okay. And one of the items on that calendar had to do with a visit that Marina, Alex's sister, was going to have to the home on the 14th. Is that right? Am I recalling
that sounds
correctly?
correct, yes.
Okay. And there was an indication there that Allison needed to leave a key for her for the front door.
Yes.
Is that right? Okay. And do you know whether that happened?
Based on my interview with Marina, I don't believe that occurred.
As far as the visit or the key?
The visit.
Okay, so you don't know, you know that she didn't visit, and I agree, I think that's what you told us.
Yes,
But you don't know whether or not the key was left for her because Marina wouldn't know that.
that is correct.
Okay. Okay, jumping ahead again. So there was a period of time that you left the violent crimes unit to be a supervisor in patrol. You talked about that. About how long were you gone?
I was gone for 16 months.
Okay. Did you, when you left, were you uncomfortable with the status of things as far as the Feldman investigation?
Well, I had not been a part of the day-to-day investigative techniques, so I mean, I don't know if I could say I was uncomfortable. I knew that they were working on it, and I had a different responsibility at that time.
Okay. So was that part of the impetus for you to want to go to patrol?
No, again, I was promoted to the rank of sergeant, and part of our policies and procedures are to be reassigned to a patrol squad. Not because I wanted to go, it was because that's our policies and procedures, and it is a procedure because of the fact that we want new supervisors to get a fresh perspective as to how to be a boss. And it's easier when you have people that you don't work with on a day-to-day and you're kind of reassigned to the entry level of police work, which is patrol.
Did you apply for that job?
Did I apply for what job?
For the promotion to sergeant?
Yes, I did.
Okay, when did you apply?
Oh, I want to say it would have been in 2013, 2013.
Okay, well, that answers my question. Okay. Okay, at some point, you went back to the Feldman investigation, I believe, as a supervisor of the Violent Crimes Unit,
Yes, sir.
correct?
Yes,
Okay,
sir.
okay. And you had talked about earlier about that the supervisor had responsibility over the, the investigation, but that there were case agents that kind of worked underneath the supervisor.
Yes.
Okay, so when you went back in the investigation, how would you categorize the status of the investigation?
So when I went back in July of 2016, the case had not been solved yet. There was still a lot of different investigative techniques and things that needed to be followed up on, and so I wanted to make sure that those areas were accomplished. So I wanted to make sure that we weren't missing anything or being more detail oriented as to identifying everything that had not been done, or relook at things from a different perspective to make sure that they had been looked at different angles.
Were you uncomfortable that the person that had originally been assigned as the lead detective hadn't done the work you're talking about, going back and double checking things?
Yes.
Okay. And I believe that you told us that you were uncomfortable with the work that had been done, but you felt like, or that the steps that you took was, first you gave that person an opportunity to meet what you felt like would be the necessary requirements to get the investigation back on track.
Yes.
And then that person ultimately didn't do that, and at that point you reassigned the lead detective job to Detective Heinzelman.
That is correct.
Okay. The things that you found that weren't being done, what were they?
There were different pieces of evidence I wanted to make sure that were sent to the crime lab. There were different interviews. There were different tips from the leads that we had received over the years, over those 2 years, or 18, 19 months, that had not been followed up with yet. I wanted to make sure that there was a sense of urgency to this investigation, as to making sure that we don't let anything slip by us.
Okay. And one of those issues was the results of an earlier canvass where information was given that a neighbor may have seen someone walking in the neighborhood around the time that the police thought the death may have occurred. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Do you remember the name of that neighbor?
Not off the top of my head. I don't remember his name. I remember what he said. I just don't recall what his exact name was.
Okay. When you say you remember what he said, do you mean you remembered what was written down by the person that did the canvass?
Yes, I remember the one of our detectives on the initial canvass, when we were out there on the 18th of February, on Wednesday the 18th, and along with the 19th, that they were spoken to by a detective and officer, and I remember seeing it on the tip sheet that we had received, that they had spoken to that person and what they saw.
Did they, I understand you may not recall this specific, but isn't it right that they spoke to the person's parents and the person's parents told them that their son had seen something? Does that sound familiar?
That sounds familiar, yes. Yes, sir, it does.
Okay. Then at some point, did you assign someone to go back and interview that person again?
So if we are we jumping forward now to 2017 to assign that assignment?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So in 2017, Detective Heinzelman I had assigned to interview this individual that lived down the street from Allison Feldman.
So 2017, you were back now, but at this point, you're the supervisor of the Violent Crimes Unit.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And some of this coincided with the 2-year anniversary of the murder.
Yes.
Okay. And you felt like movement needed to take place because the anniversary was a reminder as to where the status of the investigation was.
Yes, I mean, there was 2 years, and this case had not been solved yet. And I felt like it needed to, we needed some movement so it doesn't become more stagnant.
Okay. And you also talked about the fact that a cell phone had been found but was not followed up on. Do you remember that?
Yes.
Okay, what are the circumstances of that?
I do. There was a cell phone that had been recovered, or at least been reported to us, been found north. I don't remember exactly what the address was from Ms. Feldman's residence, but it had came through a tip, through a lead sheet that we had not followed up with. I wanted to determine if we could follow up with that.
And were you able to?
No, I don't believe we were able to figure out that phone nexus to the case.
Okay. Now, I believe we talked to you about the meetings you had. Is VCU, is that acronym for the Violent Crimes Unit?
Yes, that's the acronym for the Violent Crimes Unit.
So when you were trying to get the investigation back on track, were you having regular meetings with the detectives that had been working on the case?
Yes.
Okay. How often did those take place?
When I was a supervisor, we historically or tried to meet at least once a week as a group, as a unit, to go over statuses of in cases, anything new, debrief prior callouts, prior investigations that we had been a part of. So we met historically once a week as a group together, but I mean, I had daily contact with my detectives.
Right. Okay. Was in your mind, was that particular case the priority for your unit?
Are you talking in 20, in what
When
year?
you came back in 2017?
And when I came back in 2016,
Yes.
that, I mean, it was one of many cases that we were working on. It was a priority, but there were other new cases that were coming in, along with other investigations that we had to take a focus on too.
Were you aware that the Feldmans were meeting regularly with the assistant chief?
Yes, I was.
Okay. Were you a part of any of those meetings?
No, I was not.
Okay. How did you become aware that they were meeting?
Off the top of my head, I don't recall. I do remember having conversations with our assistant chief at the time, because he's a couple ranks above me and he was overseeing all of the investigations. So for him, it was make sure that I'm doing my job correctly. So we would have conversations as to the different things that we were doing or had learned. I believe it was during those times, those conversations, that I learned that Allison's parents, or Allison's father, was speaking with our assistant chief.
Okay. Your Honor, this is a good time for us to break.
Okay. So ladies and gentlemen, we'll go ahead and break for lunch. Please remember that admonition, and we will see you back here at 1:30.